How y'all doing today?
Good. How about you?
Good deal. If you have your Bibles, let's turn to Ephesians chapter 6. We're going to start off in chapter 10. I'm sorry, verse 10. While you're flipping that, I'd like to just start off by a little background of the book. Since we're not necessarily starting off in the beginning, it's good to know exactly more about the book, what you're in. Of course, Ephesians is a letter from Paul to the church of Ephesus. It's important to realize that when he's writing this letter, it is to when he is in prison. From the Romans have him in prison. So he is constantly under guard of the Roman guard. But you see in a second why that's so important to realize. But just read along with me, starting off in verse 10. Finally, the strong in the Lord and the strength of his might. Be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put the full armor of God, that you may be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces, wickedness, and heavenly places. Therefore, take up the full armor of God, that you may be able to resist in the evil day, and having done nothing, to stand firm. Stand firm, therefore, having girded your loins with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. In addition to all, taking up the shield of faith, which you will be able to extinguish all flaming missiles of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and with all prayer and petition, pray at all times in the Spirit, and watch in this view. Be on the alert with all perseverance and all petition for all the saints. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I come to you today. Lord, I just pray that, Lord, just speak through me, Lord. Lord, you just prepare my heart to do the speaking, Lord. And Lord, you just prepare all the hearts of people here that they may be ready to hear what you have to say. Just not for amen. I know I read through that kind of fast, but I want to go more verse by verse to get a little more in depth of what each one's saying. Starting off in verse 10, it's we do it. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Really important to realize, be strong in the Lord and in his might. I think we all might know in our heads that our strength comes from the Lord, but sometimes I'm afraid that we don't really see that in our hearts. That we still try to gain our strength from ourselves and not from the Lord. For in several places, it is brought out all throughout the Bible to where our strength comes from God and not through us. In 1 Chronicles 16:11, seek the Lord and his strength, seek his face continually. Whose strength? Again, the Lord's strength. Psalms 46:1, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. God's strength is who we turn to in trouble, and as we should in every other part of our life. Psalms 105:4 is pretty much the exact same as 1 Chronicles 16:11. Seek the Lord and his strength, seek his face evermore. Almost the exact wording. Which, whenever the Bible repeats something, it is, of course, of very much importance. So we see, I could go on all night about verse after verse about how our strength should be in the Lord. In verse 11, put on the full armor of God, that you may be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. So now we know that we are supposed to be strong, and now we know how to be strong, by putting on the full armor of God, which is the only way to be able to be strong enough to go out and face whatever we're fighting. You ask, what are we fighting? Well, at the end of verse 11, on to verse 12, you'll be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but powers, against the world forces of the darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. like to first point out that we are not in war with the heaven, with what is the flesh and blood. In fact, we're actually told to flee from what is in the flesh and blood. And there it goes. I was actually expecting to do the podium. It's all good. In Mark 9:43 to 9:47, and if the hand offend me, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter into life maimed than having two hands and to go into hell, into the fire that would never be quenched. Well, where the worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. And if the foot offended me, cut it off. It is better to be offended. It is better for thee to enter whole into life than having 2 feet to be cast into hell, enter the fire that would never shall be quenched. Where the worm dieth not, and the fire is never quenched. If thine eye offended thee, pluck it out. It is better for thee to enter into the kingdom of heaven with 1 eye than having 2 eyes and to be cast into hell. Like, I know this is a very extreme viewpoint, but this was said by Jesus himself, which to tell us the seriousness of the matter. Like a more modern example of this would be, say a guy is struggling with alcoholism and he's trying to get out of the addiction. Would it be smarter for him to keep on going to the same places, to the same bars, with the same friends, who's doing the same things, or to maybe go to some alcohol-free places and get some friends that's not drinking in front of him? Because we are told to flee from what bothers us. To flee from what is of the flesh and blood. So if it is not the flesh and blood in which we are fighting against, what is it? Again, at the bottom of verse 11, be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil himself. Then verse 12, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood again, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. So we are at, it has been described as a holy war between, as we all know, God and the devil and the demons and angels are pretty much continuously at each other, per se. So we are told to be able to fight this battle, we have to put on the full armor of God. Because the devil will try to throw things at us, and the only way to protect ourselves from it. So what would the devil be throwing at us? This would be destruction. In 5:8, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversity with the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. So the devil is out there, just seeking destruction of the Christian. Hinder of the work of God is also what the devil's out there to do. He hates the work of God. There is nothing more the devil would like to do more than to hinder the work of God. In 1 Thessalonians 2:18, wherefore we would have come unto you, even I, Paul, once again, but Satan hinders us. So even Paul himself was being hindered by the devil from the work of God. Paul, one of, if not the greatest missionary of all time, and the devil was still able to get to him and hinder the work of God through him. The devil tried to deceive the nations. He is known as the great deceiver. Revelations 20, verse 8, and shall go out and to deceive the nations which are in the forward quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together, to battle the number of whom is at the sand of the sea. And also to afflict man. As we all know, Job, the book of Job, the devil tells God that this man Job, who is a very spiritual man, and that if he were to take away all his things, that he could make him turn and curse God. And God said, you can do whatever you wish with him, just do not take his life. And you see in Job 2, verse 7, so went Satan forth and from the presence of the Lord, and smote Job with